Hello, darling people. How's everybody doing? It's Vena from Venus Spiritual Lounge. Today is Saturday the 19th. There is so much stuff I have to talk about that you know what? I think I'm just gonna telepathically send it to you all, okay? So here you go. Did you get it? Did you get it? No? Damn, you guys suck. Like, really? Alright, we'll just talk. What the heck? And that kind of reminds me of when I had that visit from another species a couple years ago, and it was right outside my driveway. And I talk about this in the second book. But they they didn't never speak to me ever. They transferred everything they wanted to. They basically had me in a their orb, their world, their uh, vibrational sphere, right? And so within that, I was able to pick up everything they were trying to convey to me, everything they were trying to tell me, and not only that, but information on it. And it's amazing to me how here, we block so much of that out. Even though we're constantly receiving stuff, right? We're receiving feelings, messages, via inside mostly, but some of us are can pick up those fine-tuned ethers from the outside, from others, or just from the general energy that's going around, right? And you know, I think it's interesting how we pick up so much, and we have to learn how to disperse that energy or categorize that energy, and realize it for what it is. A lot of times people think that they're having like a mental breakdown or they're so overloaded. They think they have some type of mental condition when actually you're just so super sensitive to all of these different energies that come at you, one way or another, from what you're picking up from others, from the news, from just watching TV. That is why I myself, because I'm extremely sensitive to all kinds of energies, I am the biggest punk, and I've told you guys this before, the biggest wimp when it comes to movies or watching something. And if it starts getting hairy, excuse me, I can't take it. And I'll turn the channel really quick. I just can't take any more of that type of energy into my system sometime. And probably too because I'm like a punk that way, right? You know? Um, it's funny because I can face like real life demons, people, no problem, zero fear. But watching something on TV, I'm like the biggest wimp. Anyway, so I would like to say that, take a look at what you're consuming, okay, or from different levels and on different levels, and kind of try to look at it objectively and see how it's affecting you, and um, where it's leading you. And some of it you don't need to carry, you know? Some of it you can just drop it. You don't need to carry it. You don't need to. absorb it all the time. You can recognize it for what it is and release it from you. All right. So, that being said, there's me getting off on another tangent. Sorry about that. Um, so, one of the first things that's going on is the gay makeup and hairdresser artist Andy Jose Hernandez was released. Okay, in that prisoner swap, which is such a shady thing this administration did with CCOT, El Salvador in El Salvador. But he was released along with several others um, to Venezuela. Okay. Um, of course, I'm sure he'd like to be released back in the United States, but at least he's out of CCOT, and through Venezuela, he can probably somehow make his way back here, or at least not be in CCOT, right? So that's a good thing as far as I'm concerned, um, because I'm sure there's going to be some type of path for him, some type of way that he can, either contact loved ones, friends, etc., and get his life to where he needs it and wants it to be. But at least he's out of CCOT where he had no chance of that. Um, Edward Fulner, who he didn't found the Heritage Foundation, but he was one of its presidents. He served 2 terms as president, had a large influence on the Heritage Foundation, who I think just suck. Um, he passed. And that's interesting to me because he was very instrumental in putting in a lot of their ideology, and he's gone. So that should be very interesting for them. Okay, after my 3 hours after my last video, I started being bombarded with messages. OMG, your prediction already came true. It just came true. Alaska had an earthquake, a 7.5 earthquake, and they've continued to have other ones. Apparently, also, Russia, the one in Siberia, and I don't know if you guys remember, but I've mentioned Siberia several times. I really think there's something huge that's going to happen there. Um, Now, their biggest volcano did have an eruption also same day, but it wasn't huge, huge. Um, but let's just keep watching out for Siberia. I'm always drawn to that portion of the world that something major is going to occur there. So let's see. Okay. Oh, Trump filed that lawsuit against uh, WSG, right? Regarding the Epstein file. Um, the Washington Post. Um, the funniest thing is, I don't see him being around by the time that lawsuit comes to a conclusion. I just don't see him being there when that finalizes somehow. And that whole situation is very interesting because Rupert Murdoch owns that, right? The Wall Street Journal. And and I said the Post, sorry, Wall Street Journal. And he owns that, and he has been ideologically connected to Trump, but also they've been friends for I don't know how long. So by him um, going ahead and posting what he did, that letter that Don the Con sent Epstein, the birthday letter, it just tells you kind of where a lot of people are at regarding Don the Con. They're not so intimidated by him anymore, and they're kind of stepping outside of that fear box that they've been in. Nick Fuentes is another one. He just lost it. Now, he's been a long time MAGA Trumper nut, and he just lost it. He turned completely against Don the Con. Even going so far as to say the liberals were right. Okay, and if you just want a feel good video, just go on YouTube and search Nick Fuentes rant on Trump, and just put yourself in a good mood. I mean, he calls him fat, a slob, this, that. I mean, it's really, like I've said from day one, all of this is to turn the tide and get people to where they need to be as far as right thinking, and against this idolization of Don the Con and his evil and his ilk. And the way the universe is doing that is just brilliant, as it always does, but in ways that we couldn't even have thought about. Who would have thought that this list would be the actual thing that really just turns MAGA against their leader? Okay, but it is. It's. I mean, they're going in droves, and honestly, it's nice to watch. I'm just sitting back, having mental popcorn, and enjoying it. And I've seen this. I've seen this turn and the tide turning, but I didn't know specifically how it was going to happen, and it's just happening in so many different ways and brilliant ways. Like I say, and I'll keep saying, divine love is brilliant, and it moves in ways that are just amazing and solid and genius level or beyond genius level, right? So, okay, and uh, Don the Con also fired Comey's daughter, who was she was the lead prosecutor in the Ghislaine Maxwell and the Diddy cases, and he fired her. Now, if that isn't like a true admission of guilt, I don't know what is, right? Why would you fire her, right? We all know he's on the list. We all know he's very guilty of doing things we can only imagine and more. Okay. And speaking of him, I also told you guys about his health, and that came out this week. And I had mentioned it in my last video, and I talked about that he was being treated for something, and they're saying it's the venous, the problem with his veins don't uh, function properly, right? I can tell you guys with 100% certainty, he's got a lot more going on and a lot more wrong with his body. Okay. They released that because it's probably the least serious condition that he has, and they had to give the people something, and they wanted a little sympathy. But he's got some major issues going on with his health, and those two will be released eventually. Um, there's a lot, many different things going on with him. Okay, and it's chronic venous insufficiency. He's at stage 4 with it. It's not supposed to be deadly, but the other conditions he has are deadly. Let's see. And along with those Epstein files, there were like 4,725 wire transfers with over 1 billion that flowed from Epstein's accounts. Okay, that's I'm so sure is very interesting. Um, let's see. I don't know if you guys remember the ones who did read my first book. Uh, my companion, my spiritual guide who escorted me throughout the entire near death experience, had told me that there are many worlds in our solar system that we don't even see. Okay. And remember, this book was written a couple years ago. And, but the information given to me was many years ago. And they told me this back then. And just this week, there was a world, it's called Ammonite, and it is in our solar system. It was actually discovered in 2023, but they weren't sure how to classify it. Okay. And in July of 2024, they found information about its orbit. Okay. And how it made its orbit around our sun. Okay. And now they're able to kind of, the reason why it's coming into the news now is because they're able to determine what type of world it is. Okay, so I just thought that'd be interesting to mention. It's called Ammonite 2023 Q14. And you can look it up. And like I said, it was discovered in 2023, but it's so far and the way it orbits, they weren't really able to find out a lot of information until just recently about it. But that's just one of the many different planetary bodies that are in our solar system that my guide spoke about. And I just thought that was worthy of a mention. And more are out there, many more. Now, some I was told via my guide that they're on a different, they have a different density, okay, which is a little bit different than dimension. So we may not be able to pick up them completely. We may get whispers or flutters of some type of energy out there, um, but it's going to be very hard for us to pick up. But they're out there, they're there. And it's just nice to get like a confirmation of that. Okay, now the NPR and public broadcasting funding was cut, and the Senate went ahead and gutted that funding. However, when I was listening to that, I was told that somehow that funding would be restored in time. I don't know how, but it would be. Some of it would be restored. So I'm going to trust that and just leave that out there. That funding for public broadcasting and NPR will somehow be restored in some way. It could be through one of those mechanisms. Remember, I told you guys that Congress will take blocks out of the bill and vote and change, restore things back. It could be through that. Um, so I'm just going to put that out there, but that's what I see. France is investigating. They have a current open active investigation on Elon for election interference. They are not playing. If a lot of you don't remember, he uh, went and campaigned for the far right in France when they had their election, and the far right fortunately lost. Um, but Macron is not forgiving him, and neither is the government. So they have filed an investigation, and I hear that Germany could be next. Because he had a lot to do with their AFD. They're really far right party. Okay, kudos to Ukraine. They hacked into Russia's largest state owned company, which produces energy and money. Okay, they hacked into it, they destroyed databases, trillions of gigabytes of information. Um, they've got them scrambling big time. Um, so kudos to them. You can look that up. That was just very recently, within the last 2 days. Um, Proud of them for doing that. Oh, Netty Pot over in Disrael. He lost the slim majority that he had in his parliament. He lost the slim majority. Not only that, he is embroiled in some serious court cases, okay? And if you've noticed, he has gone to attacking Syria now, all right? Iran, I guess, was too big of a bully for him to mess with, so he switched gears because he is under full investigation and going through all these court cases. So I guess to draw his attention off of him, he started attacking Syria. Okay, and Syria cannot fight back like Iran can. Um, but if you're interested, you've got to go and see all the legal troubles that he's in. It's mind blowing. There was a woman prosecutor that is leading the charge against him, and he had tried to get her fired, and she's not going anywhere. They're keeping her, and she's just going full force with all these different investigations. But the main news is that he lost his slim majority that he had. And so getting things that he wants done is going to be a little bit more difficult, okay? And I say that anything that impedes him is a good thing. All right, let's see. Don't forget, I talked about MAGA committing violence against Republicans. That's really coming. And speaking of that, there was a van in New York that was found to have dozens of propane tanks in it. Okay, they were full, and when the driver of the van was stopped, he took off and ran. Okay, um, and he was right at Times Square. So that was one attempt, one terrorist attempt that was thwarted. Okay, um, I still do see pockets of other ones occurring, um, but this this one was definitely thwarted. Let's see. Oh, okay. Uh, and this is a recap on a prediction, but the 2,000 Marines that were in Los Angeles have been sent back home. They're out. Okay, so they are no longer in Los Angeles. Um, and okay, I think that's all that I'm going to talk about as far as current events. Oh, excuse me. One last thing. Luigi, the guy that took out the healthcare CEO. Okay. Back when that happened, I had made a prediction that I did not see him getting like a lot of time. Okay. And at the time I made that, I said, oh, geez, I know, because they're going for the death penalty for this guy. But I kept it out there, and I'm going to keep that one out there. Here's what happened. Um, the prosecutors that are prosecuting his case made sort of a fraudulent request um, from his healthcare company, the same one whose CEO he unalived. They made a fraudulent request from them for all of Luigi's records. Okay, and it was found out that it was a fraudulent request. The way they did it and how they worded it and the information they put on it was not correct. And so they obtained all this information. So now his lawyers are going after them for this. And I think that this will be some type of battle that he may win, sort of. Okay. Which will probably either shave some time off or have a lot to do with his case. But anyway, I'm going to keep that one out there. That's ongoing. Um, but it's very interesting that that development came up. Okay, let's talk about some spiritual stuff. That's what I love to talk about, to be honest with you. Although I do love covering the current events, I really do. Um, because I love putting the spiritual perspective on things. That's how I live my life. I live it from a spiritual standpoint. Um, it's ingrained in me, it is a part of me, and it's how I live. And so, therefore, I'm able to view the world in the way that um, it's not just one sided, it's not just doom and gloom. Okay? And I try to share that as much as I can with you guys. You guys are going to come from your own perspectives, and you should. Okay? Your own spiritual understanding, and you should. Okay? I'm coming from mine. Um, you're coming from yours. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Okay? Living from the inside out, not from the outside in. Okay, and so that is why that it's so important that we respect and honor each person's opinion and their outlook, um, because when we come from within, we're tapping into that individualistic spiritual attunement that each of us has. And we're all connected. All of us. Every last one of us. All right? So, first question. Okay. Why are there prison planets? And I assume that they're asking that because I had mentioned that in my previous video about there being many prison planets. Earth is not the only hardcore planet. Um, there are many harsher planets out there where we can incarnate to and sometimes do. So this person is saying, why are there prison planets? Thought there was love and light outside of this earth that was all about teaching and learning. Well, first of all, Earth is a Earth space. The planets are in a three-dimensional world. So just because you're out in space, well, three-dimensional energies, just because you're out in space, it's still 3D out there as far as we can see. Okay? That's the first thing. Um, the second thing is you're equating, I believe, the spiritual world um, with what we see outside of Earth. And that's not necessarily so. That's um, space is 3D, but it also has its different dimensional components, just as there are different dimensional components here. Okay? So just because you're outside of Earth doesn't mean that everything is just hunky dory. Not at all. And there are prison planets because you need, there needs to be places to go for those harsher energies, those seemingly discordant energies, okay, in order for karma to be balanced, okay? You cannot balance karma in the spiritual realm. In the true spiritual realms, there is only pure harmony. Okay, there is only, in the higher spiritual realms, I'll say, there is only harmony. There is no discord. Okay, so in order to fulfill those karmic obligations, um, you need a place where you can have those harsher type energies in order to do that. Okay, Earth is one of them, but there are many others. There are many other planets, there are many other worlds, there's many other galaxies out there. We are basically like ants when it comes to the universe. Okay, so you need the energies where you can balance out your karma, fulfill those karmic obligations that you have. Okay, let's see. So, if in seeking or wishing revenge, it must do something in order for negative karma to kick in. Otherwise, the punishment would be bigger than the crime. So, in the last video, I had said that sometimes even wishing harmful things on others does create a karmic cycle, and it does. But there has to be true intent behind it. Okay, um, true. Not only intent, but true energies behind that, right? If you're sitting there and just truly like almost obsessing about someone getting, um, a certain payback, okay, wishing them evil, wishing, that is with intent. And that does create a karmic cycle for you. It may not be as harsh as someone who has committed an actual act or acted on an act, okay? But the intent and the strong intent being there, okay, can create a karmic cycle. Now, some people need to understand that justice, wanting someone to serve justice for their actions, that is not seeking revenge. That is not setting up a karmic action. Okay? You're just basically wishing, hey, I hope they pay for what they do. And they will. They will. Rest assured, they will. Okay? And that is much different than wishing harm with intent. Okay, I've known people that have obsessed over someone dying or just kept their focus on just a certain thing happening to someone. Okay, that is revenge with intent. Whether they act on it or not, it's still intention. Okay? But wanting someone to receive justice, not being concerned about how they're going to get it, that is not the same thing. And does not um, that does not invoke the karmic chain, the boomerang effect. Okay? So I hope that answers that. Let's see. Um, Thank you, thank you. Always love watching your videos. Where do spirit guides come from, and are spirit guides like God? Um, and I have actually two videos. Way, way back, I did, I believe, in like December-ish on spirit guides. So I'm not going to go into a whole lot here. But spirit guides are basically those spirits. They may not have incarnated, they may have incarnated. The ones that have incarnated have basically mastered certain human traits. They are kind of above the push and pull of how we get here on earth. And they are very in tune to the spiritual ethers. They are not subject to the push and pulls of earthly existence. Okay? So they are able to operate objectively and with love and see the broader, bigger picture. Okay? Um, and we are all gods. We all partake of the infinite source of existence of all. Okay? Um, they are no more a part of it than you are. And that goes with all beings. All beings share in that spark, that piece of the source. Okay? We are all pieces of a huge puzzle, right? All of us. And so they can be actually of a whole different uh, type of entity. They can be alien types, extraterrestrial types, and they may come in with a specific purpose for your life, and that does happen quite often. So you can have ET entities as a guide. You can have relatives that have passed as a guide. You can have, a lot of your soul family that you are very in tune with on a vibratory level. They can be your guides. Okay? And there was one more, let's say. And it says, do they have a God or spirit guide higher than them where they seek their information from for you? So no, there's not like a higher God or anything like that. There are there are spirits that are masters in some things. Um, and there are spirits that are masters in other things, right? So if you need advice, if a guide needs advice or help on, just say, for instance, uh, how to connect up with, you know, maybe I need to connect with certain people um, in my life, and so a guide needs help making those connections, getting those people in my path somehow, right? They may seek advice from a spiritual entity that has mastered that type of interaction. Okay, and they're able to do that because they can basically put out like a feeler, a request, which is picked up in the spiritual realms. Okay, and will draw the 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 entity that has mastered that to them. Okay, so and there's other entities that are masters of other things. Okay, they have their spirits have their specialties, right? Like you may be a great artist here on earth because you brought that over with you and you developed it even more while you were here. And in the spiritual world, um, you will be known and you will be called upon for your artistic talents. Okay? So, like I said, each one has their specialty. There are some who are known for their humor and how to make light of situations and how to see the humor in situations. Okay? All right, hope that answers that. Let's see. When you say if it's not your time to go, you won't go, what about free will? And if free will changes things for the worse, like Medicare cuts, won't that change things? I thought I answered this already. Maybe I didn't, but I will answer it really quickly here. Um, Free will is very limited here on Earth. We don't have complete free will, okay? So um, we are sort of confined to a certain amount of free will, okay? Um, and so, and I did answer this, and I'm sorry for repeating, but those Medicaid cuts, free will withstanding or not, if it is not your time that you have chosen to leave this existence, it's just not going to happen. And a lot of those Medicaid cuts, like I said, will be reversed somehow. They will be, um, those benefits will be restored. They will be restored. Okay, the last one. Let's see. Why do people who have dementia or Alzheimer's suddenly get clear at the end? I love that question because it's such a common thing um, that happens. But anyway, you know, the spirit sort of when it realizes, okay, it's kind of fulfilled basically a lot of its earthly mission. Um, it starts. Your spirit will start withdrawing more and more, okay, and spending more and more time in its true spiritual realm, its true spiritual home, okay? So, and when that happens, that's when a lot of these mental uh, conditions start coming on, okay? Not all of them are physical. A lot of them are because the spirit is spending more and more time on the other side. Excuse me. And so at the very end, when the spirit is about to really make its exit, okay, what it does is it is basically there is so little left of the physical person. The spirit is basically front and center, okay? And they are basically in complete animation of that body. That is why a lot of times you will hear um, people naming dead relatives, Um, talking about such beautiful sights because the spirit is totally overridden the physical, subconscious, conscious mind. That is all but gone at the end. And the spirit is truly in charge then. It's forefront. Okay? And so, um, and I've discussed this in the books, but a lot of people that you see that have dementia and Alzheimer's and some of these other type of senile diseases, um, it's really because they are withdrawing and spending more and more time in their true home, and they're familiarizing themselves with being back home. And a lot of them know that they know. They're very aware that their time is coming to an end. A lot of them won't say it because they know how much hurt it will cause their loved ones. But a lot of them are very aware. All right. So I really love that question. Um, it's such a good one because it happens, almost to everyone basically at the end if they're able to talk about it and speak about it. And it's also why a lot of people, um, are able to do certain, they get such a burst of energy because the spiritual energy is now forefront. So you can basically do anything. They have an energy about them that's you haven't seen for years. Okay, I know at the very, very end, my father, um, he knew. He said it that he was leaving. He knew it. They know. They just know. So, all right, guys. That was a lot, I know. So I'm going to end it. Sorry for talking so long. Um, just remember, um, very importantly, you don't have to call divine love. You don't have to wish it to be with you. Divine love is always there, it's always present, it's always pulsing. It is the pulse of everything. Okay? All you need to do is just acknowledge it. Okay? Acknowledge its existence. And it will show you how to fine tune that. The more you acknowledge it, the more it will show you how to fine tune it. So, where you can see it more and more in your life, in yourself. All right? And thanks for being here with me today, and I really appreciate it. Take care.